started helping people with their finances, I had 5 marriage counselors on speed dial because they will talk about their sex life long before they will talk to you about their money. And I had to get through a lot of discussions that I did not feel qualified for. I'm an analytical biochemist, for crying out loud, 0 training in the humanities. And they were starting to talk to me about issues with their love life. And I was trying to get them to talk about money issues. And it took training from those 5 marriage counselors to help me get to a point where I could frame questions and what have you to stay off the sex topics and stay on the money topics. The problem being that's where the shame and the guilt are. So as a first chakra healer, I had to learn a lot about how to help people with their sexual situations before we could talk about money. Do you realize that most marriage counselors say people will start talking about their sex lives in session 2 or 3? They will not discuss money until session 8.
Hello and welcome to the podcast Emotional Intelligence, your greatest asset and key to success. I'm your host, Dr. Jamie Carlaccio, coming to you from the Greater New Haven, Connecticut area. As a positive intelligence or PQ coach, I'm committed to helping people develop both emotional intelligence and mental fitness. That is, you'll come to regard problems as situations that help you learn and grow. PQ is a way of being and doing in the world that enables you to develop and sustain a positive relationship with yourself and others, at home, at work, and everywhere in between. Please subscribe to this podcast and tap the like button so more people can enjoy the benefits of PQ. And now, here's the show. Hello and welcome everybody. I am excited today because our topic is money. And I don't know a single person on this planet, and no, I don't know everybody on the planet, but I don't know anybody who isn't thinking about money at some point in their day, whether it's what they are going to spend, what they're going to save, how much they have or don't have, and the feelings associated with that. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about my wonderful guest, Janine Bolon. I met Janine a couple of years ago. Hi. And I am so grateful that I got to know Janine. I have learned so much from you, Janine, from your Friday coffee chats and just other interactions that we've had. We have a couple of networking groups in common. But before I say any more, I want to just share a little bit about you with our audience. And this first fact is, I think, the most interesting one. When Janine was young, she was struck by lightning, and obviously she survived and she lived through it. But it's the driving factor that inspired her not to waste time by living some kind of unfulfilled life. So originally, her life goal was to be a scientist and have as many different types of experiences as she could have. She enjoys helping people achieve their dreams and showing them the path to debt-free living. And she has a book on that, and I'll let her talk a little bit about that later, while creating a business and writing books. And she's written, I don't know, maybe we're counting at 20 by now, Janine?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, we've lost count. Okay, Amazon is very happy with you. Anyway, so she has a lot of fun helping people go from living paycheck to paycheck to living an abundant life. So she's worked as an analytical biochemist. She's homeschooled 4 children, and she runs an online university. And in 2010, she was called into active service by the Thunder Clan. And what does that mean? Well, she was pulled into her life's purpose. And that purpose is to teach, write, and guide spiritual seekers of all paradigms into deeper relationship with their source and share their spiritual, emotional, and physical laws that work with and through financial abundance. And through her books and her courses, Janine shares how to expand your intuitive gifts as well as help you uncover the blocks to help you improve your financial situation. And I certainly could use a little bit of that myself. For the more analytical seeker, Janine has been labeled a financial first responder. And for the spiritually minded, she's been labeled as a first chakra healer. The chakra up here, the crown. Oh, excuse me, the root chakra.
The
Sorry.
root chakra,
The root
yeah.
chakra, which is actually quite different, but still very connected.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
So no matter what label that you prefer, just don't call her late for dinner. She is here to share with you how to think about money and how to live debt free and leave this living from paycheck to paycheck mentality behind. But in addition, the reason I asked Janine to join me today is because I really wanted to get into this. Is called emotional intelligence. So I want to talk about the emotionality about money. And I will say that I have a lot of emotions around money, and a lot of my life has been living in a scarcity mindset because when I was growing up, money was scarce. It was also not really talked about. And if you had it, you certainly didn't really say anything, but people knew who had money and who didn't have money in my family. And we definitely didn't. And so I grew up very jealous of people who had money, but afraid to talk about it and afraid to want it. So I'm just going to leave you with that little bombshell right there and let you take it from there for a moment.
Okay, well, let's start off with where you are. Okay, and we'll talk about Jamie, but for those of you that are watching this either live streaming or you're watching the recording, I just wanted to share with you that this is not an uncommon story. All right. So if you feel alone or feel like that your family had it worse than someone else or something like that, I want you to take comfort in the fact of you picked that. You picked that experience. And how you choose to move beyond that experience is what we will talk about. Okay. So once you accept the fact that you allowed your soul to incarn in a body that lived in a family that had all of that packaging wrapped up in it, that whole paradigm that Jamie just kind of went, and here you go. This was my background. I'd like you to make a promise to yourself. And what I want you to do, if you don't mind, and you can judge this, you can take a moment and kind of check in with your higher self or however you meditate to see if it's appropriate or not. But you need to stop telling that story. That is your family story. That is how your family chose to operate. How's that working for you? Right? And so I don't mean to come off as too flip or whatever, but that's part of the problem is that you say, I grew up this way. I thought, and what you're doing is you're justifying your limitations. Stop making those excuses, right? And so, and first of all, I'm not making this a fault. It's not somebody's fault. Okay, I'm just stating these are things, these are behaviors, these are perfectly acceptable ways of communicating. And let's start a focus group. Let's get on Facebook. Let's build a group. Let's all talk about the trauma and the drama. And oh my gosh, it's stop, right? Because you're just feeding that negativity. You're feeding that ego. And believe it or not, it is your ego. This is where I grew up. So I am justified. And it's like you've seen those little kids that will hold on ferociously for something that isn't good for them. And you know it isn't good for them. And they will hang on tight as anything and realize your ego is doing that because it feels like it needs to protect you, like protect you from reality. Well, the thing is, that mindset, and just because you've experienced it, I don't care if you're 60 years old and this is all you've experienced, there are people living very, very different lives who came from the same environment you did. And they're living different lives because they chose to make different life choices and different paths. And it's never too late to change. Right. But the ego resists changes because a lot of times change is terrifying.
Exactly. Fear is underneath, I think, everything. It's underneath every emotion. But I want to go back. So the reason that we are talking about money today is exactly that we often don't even realize how unconscious our decisions are and how fear or whatever is ruling the roost, so to speak. And I wanted to also, in case some listeners aren't familiar with, say, soul contracts, I totally understand that. And my spiritual trajectory and journey has evolved to such that I understand that soul contracts are entering into agreements with what do you want to experience. And I believe, at least for me, I chose the experiences I have not because I wanted to feel like, what is it like to feel poor? But I chose the whole package. And the whole package means there must have been something else I really wanted to experience and maybe learn so that I could evolve. And so I'm at that place where I'm evaluating all those beliefs and systems and behaviors that have governed. And by the way, I'm going to be 60 in a few days. So it has been 60 years.
Congratulations. Not
You.
everybody makes it to 60.
I made it. Yeah.
Yeah, I celebrate every time I hit another decade. I'm like, woohoo, because my family doesn't necessarily, raise them long. We don't necessarily live long lives. I'm like ahead of the curve for my family. So yeah, get you.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it's really important what you said about choice and mindset. And I wondered if you could say a bit more about this concept of the ego grabbing onto something because it's familiar. It's like, for me, I understand it as, this is what I know, and it may not be good for me, but it's what I know. It's what I'm used to. And I don't know what to do if I let go of this thing. I'm not sure. And for me, my higher power is my safety net. And I just have to remember that it's always been there. And so for me, letting go is usually falling into loving arms that protect me and bring me to something better.
Let's start off with the fact that whether you have soul contracts or you have a spirituality that accepts it, all that, let's just bring it down into a very secular environment for a moment. The thing is taking responsibility for where you currently stand.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason that we talk in mindset when it comes to money about it doesn't matter what your family did. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. That what matters is where you stand right now in this present moment. And any successful person will tell you that where their power lies is in that present moment. Now, some call it the power of now with Eckhart Tolle and all that kind of stuff. But even athletes that have never heard of the man, or even people who have never had any kind of spiritual teaching in that way, will talk about where is your power. And as an athlete, it's like, if my head in the game, they always know when they're off, right? Every athlete will tell you that. People who are on media, like anchor people or people who are reporters, will always tell you that sometimes the camera will go on and they're not in the right mind space. And they know they're not. And you're seeing them trying to recover. So when you talk about mindset, it's you were thinking about the past, you were thinking about the future, you were not thinking about where you are right now. And the mindset that's so important is that one where you address the ego's concerns, because no offense, the ego kept you safe during your 2, 3, and 4-year-old phase. And let me tell you, that's where I feel like children are trying to die. They're sticking things into electrical sockets. I just always felt like I'm just trying to keep them alive to their 5th birthday. Okay. That's how I felt as a mother of 4. Realize the ego is in that space. My ego, I actually got a glimpse of it that it was actually 6. It was 6 years old. I actually got kind of that understanding of myself. And when I realized it was a 6-year-old, I realized, oh my gosh, there is no cognitive, analytical reasoning skills at that level, right? That is not happening. I have to deal with this ego at a very basic way and very emotionally, and realize it knows good from bad. It knows right from wrong, but it also doesn't see the past. It doesn't see the future. It just sees the now. And when I started understanding that about my ego, I could address my demons, so-called, I could address my darkness. I could address my demons one moment at a time that way. And so when I was getting ready to make a decision on something and I could feel myself being tight-fisted as a very terrified 6-year-old, I could talk to that 6-year-old and say, you have every right to be afraid. You have every right. I acknowledge the fact that you're feeling afraid right now. What can we do to make you feel safer right now? And usually it was just taking a couple of breaths. And then after taking a couple of breaths, pausing a little bit, I would then say, so what's the real concern? And then a memory would flash up from the
Oh,
past. And I'd
yeah.
go, that's totally appropriate. However, I'm not there now. You're still there.
Yeah.
We're here now. And I would have to like coax that person through. And I'm talking about this very slowly. This would happen in a matter of microseconds. I mean, this can happen very, very fast, but it takes time to learn. And so some
Yeah.
people, it may take you a whole 15 to 30 seconds, all right, to do this. Come on now, people. You can do 15 to 30 seconds where you hit the pause button on life and
Yeah.
deal with that demon, that darkness, that shadow, however you want to label that. So it's very important to acknowledge
Yeah.
where you are right now, okay? And stop telling stories that are not helping you move forward. The more you talk about the things that you had to grow up and the things you had to overcome, the more you bring all of that into your present moment. Well, did all that information help you before when you were making these choices? I don't think so. So stop
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
And by the way I'm speaking to you and your listeners right now is how I talk to myself. So I'm just letting you in that crazy nut house that is Janine's brain.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Some people might call what you just talked about inner child work because there is this inner child, like, I need to tell you something. You're okay now. That might have been rough when you were 6, but you're 56 now or something. And I've learned I don't do it in microseconds yet, but I do realize that I've become aware of when I'm in fear, and I'm aware of when I have a negative emotion that isn't serving me or anybody else. And that even goes with money. And so I've been really contemplating. In fact, I'm doing a 7-day meditation on my shadow self and just learning that I get to embrace every single part of myself as part of the whole me, even the parts that I may wish didn't exist or that I don't like so much, but they're all part of me. And that is actually helping me to move beyond all of this other kind of mind clutter that is existing, and that I'm saying, you're right, Janine, none of this really matters because that's not today. And it isn't. And we talked about finding your purpose last week with Matt Barafato. And it's about being in that state of flow that you were talking about, whether you're a news anchor or an athlete or anything. But when you're in flow, you're in the right now. You're in the right now. You're not in what happened yesterday or what might happen and isn't even predictable for tomorrow.
That's so true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things I caution people on, and this is because I'm sure it's because of my analytical nature and the fact that I am a writer and I work with words. Okay. So you have artists that work with paint and paintbrushes or sculpture or what have you. Well, my art is words. And so I pick up on words that people use a lot. And so I like to do just a little cognitive behavioral therapy, which, by the way, I'm not licensed or accredited. So, but I play one on TV kind of experience. All right. But it's very important that you make sure that the word work is something that you really want to be actively doing. And so I choose not to use that word when I'm talking about what we were describing regarding shadow, the shadow side or what have you, because there's no effort required on my part.
Say more
There's
about
no
that when you say there's no effort
required. Okay. What we're doing here is we are allowing grace to enter. We are making space. We are releasing. We're letting go of the work. See, this to me is what the shifts of mindset are all about, is when you stop resisting.
Yeah.
When you stop putting up the defensive barriers, when you stop working.
Yeah. 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 And when people say, what do you do for work? For me, what I do isn't work. And so I don't think of what I do as work as much as I'm doing what I love. And when I'm doing what I love, I don't even think about, I don't punch a clock, even though I may have to punch a clock. Like, yes, I have to get up. I want to go to the gym. And yes, I need to make sure my son has dinner tonight. But other than that, I think it behooves us to think about that word work. I like that you brought that up. That's really important because
so
that sets up this whole other mindset, right?
I'm going to stop you right there. And I'm going to say, you made, and I would love for you to go back, and I want you to pinpoint all the assumptions you made about the word I used, which was work. You talked about punching a clock. You started mentioning things that you have to do, and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I'd like you to go back and listen to what you said. And the listeners, you guys, this is so valuable. I started in radio in 1982. And I would listen to my recorded stuff, and I realized some of the things that I was saying, and nothing is more valuable. I didn't enjoy it, by the way. I didn't enjoy going back and listening to myself because I sounded weird, because we're used to hearing ourselves through our bones.
Yeah.
So when you hear yourself recorded, it's very weird. And then the other thing is, what you think you are saying is so different from what actually comes out of your mouth when you're not aware of what's happening.
Yeah.
And so we make a lot of assumptions about things. So when I was talking about work, I was using it in the physics aspect of it, which is the amount of energy required to sustain a behavior.
Yeah, and I was thinking of it in a totally cultural sense.
And that's totally fine. And it's wonderful that you did, because it just shows the amount of assumptions we make on a daily basis when one person is speaking and we are receiving that information. And so when I speak about work, I don't care what your emotional state is regarding it. You are expending energy. Let's go back to what we were talking about, money and the resistance that we have toward it, because we're too busy making it difficult for us to receive.
So I just was listening to something the other day, and this person remarked that emotions, and I believe this because I do energy work as well, I'm a Reiki master, but emotion is energy in motion. And so talking about energy, not only what we put out into the world without recognizing it or realizing it, how it's received. And like you said, the amount of resistance to the energy is what's going to require a certain amount of effort, right? Energy flows, but oftentimes if you think of wind, there's resistance.
And so when you were in physics, you learned that there are two types of energy, and this is very classical stuff. So we're going to take it to really good, basic Newtonian kind of physics. And that is, you have potential energy and you have kinetic energy. Potential energy is what I see a lot happens with thought and emotion. Emotion, you can love something and no work is required. No work's required. You can totally love something. And you hear that love is action, love is this, love is that. Well, no offense, how dare you tell me what love is? I know when I am receiving God's grace. How dare you tell me I have to be working to receive it, or I need to be worthy for that?
Yeah, that's a
and
tough
so
one
I'm
for
mixing things here. I'm being scientific. I'm bouncing back and forth between the secular and the spiritual here. But I'm also trying to make a point that resistance takes work. Money just needs to be received. And there's a lot in between there that people make resistance work. And so when we're talking about mindset, I really want to dig pretty deeply. Like I said, I'm a first chakra healer, so we dig a lot. And what I like to dig down to is basically, you deserve all the money you have received. Now, if you're in debt and you're not worth, okay, so then people get into self-blame and all that. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is you deserve a better life. So sit there and own where you are. Write down in dollars and cents how much money you owe other people. Write down how much money is actually coming in. I couldn't believe the number of clients that I had, of coached over 1,600 clients,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't believe how many clients I had that would tell me how much money they made each
Uh-huh.
year,
Uh-huh.
but they didn't know how much money actually landed in their bank account. Just because you say, I make 135,000 a year, how
Uh-huh.
much of that is Uncle Sam's before you even
Yeah.
get it in your checking account? So I was wanting to know what the net money was, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's a good starting place, is how much you are making net. Okay. And then after that, then start working on a plan to improve your life. And you start doing that by becoming extremely jealous of your time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what's amazing is the more you schedule your life so that you make room for the things you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and then the things that you feel are your responsibility and all that, then you start to see how much time is left. Now, when do you want to relax? When do you want to go out? And in my case, I love to go snowshoeing in the mountains. So when am I going to go into the mountains? And when am I going to get busy changing my life? So that's the items that I see over and
Mm-hmm.
over again with very wealthy people, is that the wealthy people that I have been lucky enough to be able to interview and to really examine their lives,
Mm-hmm.
they all live their lives by a calendar.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I have all kinds of things going through my head as you say that, because today I did write down a schedule for myself that listed what I wanted to do and when I wanted to do it. And one of the first things I do every day is for myself. I get my coffee, which is for myself, and I meditate, and I usually get on a Zoom call with friends, and then I go to the gym. And so I try to jealously guard those things that feed my soul before I even attempt to do other stuff, like check email or, tackle something that I said I was going to do. Like today, it's purging my files, which is going to make me feel better. It's going to clear away some of the detritus that's been collecting in my head. But I like that you said that people really learn to value their time and what nourishes them or feeds them.
Mm-hmm.
And I can say that I have certainly been one of those people, to use a proverbial phrase, that runs around like a chicken with her head cut off sometimes. And then I'm just spinning my wheels, and I'm usually not present at all when that's happening. So, yeah. So I wanted to say, going back to feelings about money, sometimes people feel guilty for wanting money, or feel shame in having more money or less money. I know that in our culture, especially, people blame the poor as if they are less virtuous because they don't have money or they rely on government assistance or something. So there's a lot of emotion and judgment around it. And something I learned is money's just a thing. It's just there like a hammer. You need it, you pick it up when you need it, or it's there, it's available as a tool, and you use it for the appropriate thing. And when I started thinking about money as just something that is inert, really, it's just there, and that it doesn't have to have a value tied to it per se, that actually helped me shift my thinking about it, and to shift my thinking about whether I wanted it and why I wanted it. And I probably said some things in there that belie my supposed enlightenment, but I'm still in this process of evolving my thoughts about it and my feelings.
We all are. Everybody is.
Yeah.
We're always evolving, and if you're evolving, then you're not psychological furniture. You're not inert, and that's a good
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Right.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And anybody who says, well, I just want to stay the way I am for the rest of my eternity, are not people that I hang with. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
but for starters, where it comes to the emotional side of money, people judge people. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care if you're poor, rich, I don't care. So when you are kind enough to bring to our attention that, people, poor people are judged, I'd like to say, please show me a human being on this planet that has not been judged.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so let's go a little deeper now. All right, you talked about shame and guilt. Well, shame,
Mm-hmm.
then guilt. There is a reason that when I first started helping people with their finances, I
Mm-hmm.
had 5 marriage counselors on speed dial because
I gotta hear this.
they will talk about their sex life long before they will talk to you about their money. And I had to get through a lot of discussions that I did not feel qualified for. I'm an analytical biochemist, for crying out loud, zero training in the humanities. Um, and they were starting to talk to me about issues with their love life. And I was trying to get them to talk about money issues. And it took training from those 5 marriage counselors to help me get to a point where I could frame questions and what have you to stay off the sex topics and stay on the money topics. The problem being that's where the shame and the guilt are.
Oh,
So as a
wow. Yeah.
first chakra healer,
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn a lot about how to help people with their sexual situations before we could talk about money. Do you realize that most marriage counselors say people will start talking about their sex lives in session 2 or 3? They will
Mm-hmm.
not discuss money until session 8.
Wow. No, that's
There you go.
amazing. Wow.
Yes. So
That's huge. That's, yeah.
when you bring up shame and guilt, people immediately go to sex. I'm like, try
Oh,
money.
yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot deeper down there.
Woo. Yeah. Yeah. So there must be a lot of fear around. Like, I don't even really want to talk about it. Yeah. I love it. So it sounds like you've had a really wide variety of clients,
Mhm.
and like you say, you've been doing this for a very long time, 1,600 people that you've helped. Do you have any, because we're getting close to the end of our time, do you have any nuggets of wisdom that you've learned that have helped you and that you could impart to our audience besides what
Sure.
you've already given us?
Sure. I'll be glad to leave you guys some stuff. First of all, I'm a very practical person. I'm practical in my spirituality. I'm very earthy. I'm like, okay, show me how to implement it. So I love
Okay.
ideas. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I love
Uh-huh.
brainstorming. I love ideas. I love these visionaries that have these amazing ideas for us. Love those people. Okay. But I know my place in society, and that is it's my job to implement it. So let's
Mm-hmm.
some of the stuff. It's very lovely. Jamie will continue to work with you, continue to listen to her show. As she goes on her journey, she'll be glad to invite you along with her. So definitely continue to listen to this. That's step one. Listen to people who are also on a similar journey. Have that as your support network. Make sure you join up with her Facebook group or whatever she's got going on because she is evolving. Okay. Is she evolving perfectly? God, I hope not. None of us are.
No, she's
Right.
pretty boring.
Right.
Yeah.
But definitely be a part of this group, be a part of this journey with Jamie. Okay. Number two, find somebody that you like, the way their system rolls.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't talk about the 60/40 principle. I've written a lot
No.
about it. Jamie, if
Yeah.
you put the
It's
links
going
down
in
there,
the show notes for
that's
sure.
fine. That's
Yeah.
fine. So it's all free, okay? Because
Mm-hmm.
my business has evolved and I moved on to other things, but I'm still available to anybody who wants to talk about money. I will be glad to help you with that. There's a lot of free content there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a psychological thing. Just because it's free, people think it doesn't have value. I want you to
No.
know what I'm offering you for free because you're listening to Jamie today. I used
Mm-hmm.
to charge $2,970 for a weekend to go through similar information. I did this in 1997 through 2005. So that's the content. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who are you going to have that is going to hold your feet to the fire to make sure that you stay there, even though it gets really uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
you still make progress and move forward? You're going to hire Jamie? Are you going to hire some other coach? Are you going to show up to my open Friday coffees? These are choices that are laying out before you. But it's very important that number one, you decide that you're going to do it. You're going to get
Mm-hmm.
yourself out of debt. You're going to start making more money. Okay. Number two, who is going to be in your support group? Oh, please don't pick your partner. Oh my God, please no, give them a break. Okay.
Yeah.
You're trying to evolve into something differently. Please allow your partner to be there to be your cheerleader or to be your salve when the world gets tough and get somebody else. So join Jamie's group, be a part of that. Okay. Number three, make sure you pick one person say, okay, this is my plan. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. I want to meet with you once a week to make sure I do it. Or some people have even met every single day because they need that kind of support. What kind of support do you do? And my dear people who are male, please ask for help. Yeah. I know it's very difficult. And I know that you have been taught since you were knee-high to a grasshopper, as we like to say. I know that you've been taught that you need to learn to do it for yourself, figure it out, be the best man you possibly can be. And please, I want you to know that if you're struggling with under-earning, if you're struggling with self-worth issues, allow someone to help you move through that, because you'll go faster. And I want to save you time, I want to save you money, and I want to save you your sanity. I want to save you those 3 things. So please take my advice on this, if nothing else, and start those 3 points. Thank you so much, Jamie, for letting me be on your show.
I am so grateful to you, Janine. And just now we have a little bit of a treat. Janine, it is a blessing to have you here with me, and I will see you again soon. I think you're off for a week or 2 for Coffee Fridays. Is that right?
That's correct. But I'll be back on September 27th, and we'll be there almost every Friday. Yeah.
Awesome. And I'll make sure people know that in the show notes. And until next time, I'll see you guys all at the positive/emotional intelligence gym, where you can start feeling better right now. Take care. Bye.